Oh, I guess this is a good time. I was gonna go like for future videos. So, in terms of going in, we should write down. Yeah, which is why I think the first one was good and the rest were kind of iffy.
Oh, okay. Oh, you want to do questions for all of them? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Do you want to do one for each, or at least know what you're gonna say?
Welcome back to Monetize Me. My name is Mac,
My name is Jay.
and you know us as Mac and Jay or Jay and Mac. It doesn't matter.
Well, monetize me because that's the name of the channel.
I don't believe that's the name of our channel, but we will move on.
Okay.
And today we're talking about the Lean Startup. Monetize Me is actually the name of our channel. And isn't that like a cool name? I love that name.
Yeah, it's a good whatchamacallit.
Yes. And if you don't know what monetization is, shame on you.
We're not monetized yet. Well, as of recording this video.
As of recording this video.
In terms of YouTube. But this is more of monetization as a whole, meaning products, startups, business. Monetizing is entrepreneurship.
Actually, it's a cry for help. We need money.
It's a cry for help. Here's our PayPal link. Please donate.
Please. So, the Lean Startup is a methodology for starting businesses. Again, it's not a tell-all methodology. It doesn't encompass everything. But it's a good methodology to keep in mind when you're starting a startup and try to use some of the points that it makes.
And I think it applies more times than not. I think most startups, being called startups, means you probably fit into this category.
The Lean Startup methodology. Yeah, we use it a lot in a lot of our ventures. In one of our ventures, we used it very heavily. LiftSmart.
Yep.
We basically went from A to Z. We got the business model canvas, and we'll talk about more of the components of this methodology. But yeah, so I guess the first question would be, what do you think are some of the reasons starting up is so hard? Or what are some of the barriers that people face when they start out?
Yeah, so I think, in my opinion, a lot of the time it's because of either resources, time, or knowledge or experience. So either I don't have the money to build up what I'm trying to build, I don't have the man hours to create this giant product or platform, or I just don't have the experience. I know what I want to do and I know the product and the need, but I just don't have the experience to kind of piece it together to actually fix the problem. So those are three things in my head that I think are big problems when it comes to starting up. And the other one that kind of deters founders from starting is the process of starting. I think the process is another big thing that kind of hinders entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So I think, in my research, I found a bunch of reasons. The high costs, definitely a big reason. High cost of that first customer, all the things you have to do, the process that you have to go through, the money that you have to spend, the time that you have to put in order to get that first customer is so big that most people are deterred from actually pursuing their ideas because they start their business and then they're just
stopped. Yeah,
they're just kind of bogged down. They're bogged down by everything that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And it can be overwhelming, definitely.
It can be very overwhelming. The other thing is how long it takes to develop products, especially tech products. Tech products take, like years, months.
Yeah. They can take years, months. They can be quicker, they can take longer,
they can be.
But it's usually the development cycle is fairly large. So going from, I have an idea for a feature to getting it to release is a fairly lengthy process.
Yeah. And also there's a lot of risks. There's so many risks associated with starting a business. You're risking, if you quit your job, you're risking it failing and you don't have a job anymore. You have to go find a new job. If you're risking your time, even if you don't quit your job, all that time after work you're spending on this startup, I think risk is a little harsh in this context, but you're still using that time towards something that may be a fail. Yeah.
Hopefully it's not wasted because you learn from your failure, but it is time you can't get back.
Exactly.
And time is way more valuable than currency. Time is all you've got. So that feeling when you've started to start up and it just fails at the end of all this time, just kind of, it hurts.
Exactly. And that time, you could have spent that time learning how to trade and make 2% on your money on the stock market or more. Yeah, but so the Lean Startup methodology attempts to address some of these problems by refuting the traditional business path. So what is the traditional business path?
I think the traditional business path is fairly lengthy because it consists of developing an entire business model, building out your product, building out your team, getting your market strategy, and then trying to sell that product to your customers. And that just all takes a super long time, a lot of man hours, a lot of thought into something that could just flop and straight up not work from the start.
Exactly, yeah. So the traditional business path is business plan, investor, product development, and sales. That's literally the traditional. So you don't see the customer feedback. You don't see the customers' buying decisions. You don't see any of the customers' real world decisions until like a very long time, like until you waste a lot of your resources and time. I mean, think about it.
So
you're creating a business plan. You're writing a business plan. You're probably gonna spend a month on that business plan. If you're writing,
if you're doing it correctly,
if you're doing the
full,
traditional business plan, right? You're going to investors. That's probably going to take you 6 months, maybe a year, maybe even longer.
As you're building the product.
Yeah, you're building the product. That's another, depending on your product, that could take months to a year.
Or
you're
years.
spending, like, even if, let's say, best case scenario, you're spending 6 months doing this traditional business path to figure out that no customer wants to buy it.
And that's fast. 6 months to go
super fast
all the way through developing a business is quick. And it's a long time to just lose because it didn't work.
Yeah, so the lean startup essentially addresses this issue. It refutes this traditional business path, and its emphasis is on experimentation. You have a hypothesis, you immediately test it out. How do you test it out?
Experimentation and iteration.
Experimentation and iteration.
I'm assuming this. I'm going to go find out if that's true, and then incorporate it if it is, and pivot if it's not.
Exactly. So you hypothesize, you experiment, and then you iterate. You do the same thing over again. You hypothesize, you experiment. Right. So the first thing that the lean startup kind of guides people to do is fill out this thing called the business model canvas. So how would you describe a business model canvas to somebody who's never heard of it?
A business model canvas is basically a condensed version of a business plan. So in the traditional sense, you have this giant business plan that you fill out with all your marketing strategies and projections and revenue streams and outlining the product and everything you're going to have and everything that goes along with it. Whereas as soon as that hits the customers, you're probably going to have to change that. So why waste all that time? A business model canvas was built to condense that down to assumptions and just outlining how you think this is going to work so that you have something to iterate on. You need that basis to say, hey, this is my plan, this is my strategy, and let's go see if it'll work. And then I can always come back and iterate, but I need that starting point.
Yeah. So according to the lean startup, the business model canvas just helps you develop those core elements of the business. So like the first section of the business model canvas, it's the customer segments. It literally, the thing you're trying to answer, the question that you're trying to answer here is, who are your customers, right? And you want to be as specific as possible. You want to use stuff for like a specific age range, demographics, location, lifestyle, gender. All these things will help you figure out who are the customers I want to target, right? Because once you kind of target your customers very specifically, you can then move on to answer questions like in the next one in the business model canvas is literally the customer relationship, right? How do my customers want to be interacted with, right? What type of relationship is my customer expecting from me?
And how am I going to go about maintaining that relationship?
Yeah. So you can't answer the question of how do my customers want to interact with me without having customer segments, without knowing who your customers are, right? You can't answer the question of channels, which is like the next box that you have to fill out, without, again, knowing your customer segments. So the channels box is literally, how do I interact with my customers, right? Am I interacting with my customers through social media? Am I interacting with my customers through a newspaper?
Or maybe directly.
Or face-to-face, based on how big your customer segment is, their location, right? The next big part of the business model canvas is the value proposition. This is where you're basically stating what value do you provide the customer.
Kind of outlining the reason behind your product, because you're starting a startup, so you're doing something. This is that thing.
Yeah. So you're going to be listing you're going to list the what you hypothesize or what you assume is the value that the customer is getting out of it based on these customer problems.
Yeah.
Right. So a customer might need to see better. So you're like, yeah, I'll make glasses, right? Or maybe they don't like glasses. Maybe their issue is the glasses are too bulky, right? So you come up with a different solution. You also will probably list your right now we call them assumptive products and services because you don't really know what your products and services are yet. Right? But you're going to assume this product is going to solve this problem, is going to provide this type of value.
Okay.
Right? The next section, and I think this one is more, I feel like it's less relevant to the beginning of the startup. It can be, but it's usually later down the line is who are your key partners, right? What kind of people are you going to be partnering up with? What kind of companies specifically?
Okay.
And how would you go about reaching them? What are you getting from them? What are the supplies that you're getting from them?
And this is done initially. You're trying to determine who your partners are going to be,
so
or just maybe like outlining possibilities, or
so this is all hypotheses, right? So you're gonna try to hypothesize or try to assume based on everything else in your document, your customers, your customer channels, your value proposition. Who are my key partners? So if you're a shoe company, you have to have somebody to supply you with the different raw materials, right? So that would be a key partner.
Yep.
But if, let's say, you're the problem that you're trying to solve is customers don't have nice athletic shoes, right? But maybe you can find a different product or service to solve that with. You don't necessarily have to partner with these partners, but you're assuming these.
So you're assuming these will be your key partners.
Yeah, yeah. The next thing is the key activities. I feel like this one is a little. It's not as intuitive. I feel like because you're kind of assuming what you're doing, like the key activities.
So
what am I?
How would you describe key activities in like a couple words?
Key activities are just the services and decisions / actions that the business is making.
Okay.
Or on a regular basis.
So key activities isn't my customers' activities; it's my activities that I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it's the business.
Okay,
it's what the business is doing on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis to provide that value.
Okay.
Right. And the other one you have to fill out is the key resources. Resources. Yeah.
You said it first. You said it right the first time.
Oh, I'm notorious for butchering words. So what resources do you need to realize your value proposition? Right.
Yeah.
And the last two are, I think, one of the more important ones is the cost structure and the revenue stream. So in a traditional business plan, you have a financial component, a financial plan. This kind of condenses it into 2 points. Cost structure, what am I going to charge the customer? What is the customer willing to pay for this value or for this service or for this product, right? And based on the key activities and the key resources, what is this going to cost me? Sorry, I flipped that. Cost structure is literally what is it going to cost me
to
develop
it's
the
my
product. Yes.
Okay.
So what is the business's expenses to develop the product or provide the value? And the revenue streams is what the customer is willing to pay. I'm done.
Or what the customers are willing to pay, as well as any other channels you can get from your product that maybe aren't directly related to your customers.
Yeah. So maybe if you're Facebook, you sell your customers' data, or
as well as advertisements or analytics, stuff like that. Yeah.
So the next part of the next thing that the lean startup methodology recommends is to get out of the office, get out of the room, and go talk to customers. So why do you think customer feedback is important?
Customer feedback is probably one of the single easiest ways to validate your assumptions in your product. If you're going directly to the people that are going to be using it, you can know what they think about it. So it's not just me assuming, maybe I have experience in the industry, maybe I know what I should be doing. But if I'm asking the customers that are going to be using it, I can verify my assumptions right there as soon as I talk. So I think talking to customers should be done as early in the process as possible.
Yeah. So you're this whole business model canvas that you just wrote up or filled out, it's all assumptions. It's based on research, right? It's based on truths
Or experience.
But you're assuming that this customer segment that I identified will need this value or will get value from this product or service, and they're going to pay this much for it. So it's all assumptions. So the customer feedback step is literally to go and be like, are all these hypotheses I made, are they correct? You're testing your hypotheses, right? You're trying to figure out, is the customer actually going to pay this for that product, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important in the process of developing your business model, because it helps you develop the right business model. Because at the end of the day, you want to address the customer's needs and wants, right? You want the only way you make
That's
money.
your goal. Yeah. That's why
the only way you can make money is if you provide value for the customers. Nobody's going to spend money on something that's useless to them.
Yeah.
Well, actually, a lot of people spend money on things that are useless to them.
But it's perception, right? They're not going to spend money on something they perceive as useless. Maybe it is useless, but they perceive some type of value for it.
Exactly. So go out there, find a customer, and talk to them about your services, your products, your revenue model. Talk to them about everything. Don't leave anything out. I think the classic mistakes that entrepreneurs make is they're too secretive, or they have a unique enough idea where if I talk to customers about it, somebody's going to steal it, right? And when I say customers, I'm just talking about people, right? I'm talking about people. Ideally, you talk to people who are identified in your customer segment. If you identified tech bros as your customers, go talk to a tech bro. don't go talk to a nanny and be like, hey, would you use this? Because obviously different perspectives. But if you can't find tech bros, it's always also good just to test it against everybody, right? Just, okay, sure, I'll talk to a nanny. Maybe she doesn't have this problem, but she might be able to give me insight, right? Or sometimes you identify a customer segment like tech bros, and then you find out that maybe an engineer has that problem, or a finance guy has that problem, or anything
that's more suited to your product.
Exactly, and then you can pivot and tailor that more to that customer segment.
Yeah.
So
another thing I want to interject right there is transparency isn't always the case. The best case, you don't always need the transparency, and there is a time and place to be secretive. If your business is around a patent or IP that is your sole leverage, your leg up on your competition in the industry is your IP, then there are reasons to limit your transparency to preserve that competitive edge. But unless you have that, there's no reason not to be transparent. The more feedback, the more people you talk to, the better.
Yeah, if your strategy is, I've created this unique thing that I know already has value and I want to patent it, then you probably don't want to go around and just spread around that I have this thing. But even when you're trying to patent up a product or service or whatever,
it doesn't mean you can't talk about the service.
Yeah, you still probably want to go, and don't go into the technicalities. Don't go into how it's made or whatever. Just talk about the value of it. Yeah. And that will give you valuable insight. Okay, you don't want to patent something that's useless. Or maybe you don't want to. Peanut butter. Well, actually, peanut butter is not useless, but yeah. So
it's a great weapon.
He's allergic. So the whole point of the customer feedback step is literally to listen. Listen to your customers. Listen to what they're telling you. Listen to their concerns, right? Because you have a hypothesis, that doesn't always mean that a customer will validate your hypothesis. Sometimes a customer will be like, no. And then you have to go back and be like, okay, maybe this customer segment isn't the right segment for my idea. Or maybe I have to propose a different idea or a different value. Or maybe I need to propose a different price.
Yeah, maybe it just wasn't worth what I was gonna try and charge them. Yeah.
So the whole methodology is hypothesize and test, right? So now that you've kind of come up with a business model canvas that, okay, I've talked to a bunch of customers and it looks like this is what they want, the next step is to build an MVP, right? Do you want to talk about what an MVP is?
Yeah, so an MVP is basically your minimum viable product. What is the smallest base product that I can get away with that represents what I'm trying to do? If you're opening up a burger stand, it's the burger. The burger is your MVP. If people eat that burger, okay, well, then you can work on building up the stand. If it is some type of software, just get the minimum wireframes working. Don't worry about the UI. Don't worry about making it look pretty. Don't worry about anything else. Just get the basic feature that you're trying to offer up and running so that people can see it. And maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just a fluid UI hey, this is just a demo. It doesn't actually work, but you can see what we're accomplishing and how you would use this. It's just the cheapest, quickest first version of your product.
Exactly, yeah. So the methodology, the framework, the lean startup framework really emphasizes the fact that it should be cheap and effortless or as close to effortless as possible.
Yeah.
I obviously want to put in some effort. And it's not to say that it should be a cheap product.
It should be cheap does not mean low quality.
Exactly.
I think what
so
it
should still be a quality product. It should just not. You shouldn't be spending millions of bucks on it.
Yeah.
If your MVP needs millions of bucks, that's a different story. But I think most prototypes can be made with less than $1 million
or for free.
or yeah. So you're going to be making this prototype to go back to the customer. So
Yeah.
the first thing you did was you made a business plan, a prototype of a business plan called the business model canvas. You went to the customers, you refined it. Now you're doing the same thing with your product.
Yep.
Take the example of the cheeseburger. You're going to go and you're like, okay, let's start. The customer told me they like garlic sauce and maybe they want to put it in a to-go wrapper or whatever the case is, and now you take it to a customer and then you give them your product and they can comment. They basically give you feedback on it, and you make incremental changes to that product. Once you build your MVP and get your customer feedback, now you have a product.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're making changes. It's still
Based
probably
on
not. Yeah,
usage.
it's still not launch ready. Probably. I mean, you probably still have to make more changes to it, right? And if you like, for example, if you're making a wireframe, right, now you have to go and actually build it, right?
Yeah. But at least you know that okay, they liked how it worked or what I was doing with that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not. It doesn't mean that your company is launch ready, but you are developing a product that the customer wants.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of this methodology. So I kind of want to step back and talk a little bit about the assumptions that this methodology kind of takes in or internalizes. So what do you think are some of the assumptions that the lean startup makes in the overlying business world?
I think the assumption that the lean startup methodology is making is that you want to move quickly. So it's geared towards the move quickly, fail fast, get feedback, iterative loop for startups. So if you are building something around IP or stuff like that we talked about earlier, maybe it's not the thing for you. But when you want to just figure out whether or not what your product idea is going to work, I think it's a great tool because it's going to determine whether it's going to succeed or fail very quickly. And you can iterate, either pivot your market, do X, Y, or Z very quickly, but you at least know you're not wasting your time. And it's a good proof of concept when it comes to, am I wasting my time pursuing this?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with you. The lean startup methodology is geared towards disruptor startups. It's essentially, I'm going to get a product out there fast, I'm going to target a very small niche market, and I will scale it up, right? Probably using superior technologies, whatever the case is. Another assumption that the lean startup makes is that business plans rarely survive first customers.
Okay.
So essentially, the whole methodology assumes that business plans are just going to be invalidated. It's not always true. But for most companies, it assumes that the business plan is just not going to survive it. It's the elements, yeah.
And it's taking advantage of the fact that if this business plan that you're writing up and spending a lot of time in is going to fail anyways, or is likely to fail, why waste all that time?
Exactly.
Use that time more efficiently.
That's the whole idea of the business model canvas. Why spend so much time writing out a 28-page business plan that's completely based on assumptions when you can write a 1-page business model canvas, which is essentially just a business plan, a bunch of other stuff taken out of it, a bunch of sections taken out of it. Yeah. But if the business plan isn't going to survive, why even bother? All right.
It's such a waste of time. It's like building the entire product first. If you build up your entire product and spend a lot of time and money on it, and then it doesn't work, it's
a hit or miss.
Yeah.
It's literally a 50-50.
And it might work. The whole point being,
you might fail.
You don't know if it's going to work. You want to mitigate the risk.
So the other assumption that the lean startup methodology makes is that startups are just smaller versions of established businesses. So
no. The assumption is that they are not.
Oh yeah, sorry, they are not. Sorry, good catch. So it assumes that startups are smaller, aren't smaller. No, the assumption is
that startups are not the same thing as a small business.
Yes,
a small company.
Yes.
The difference is
small version. So
a small version of a company.
Small version of a company. So let's take Walmart for example. It's a huge company, right?
Yeah.
It's like assuming that what's Slack? Is Slack still a startup?
No.
I'm not in tune with the newest startups. Anyway, a startup is not just a smaller version of Walmart, right? Startups don't need all that bulk that Walmart has. They don't need all that accounting structure and legal structure, right? That's at least the assumption of the lean startup, right? In the lean startup, the lean startup states that existing businesses execute business models as compared to startups who are finding one.
Yeah. So the whole difference coming down to, if you are an established company, it is because you have a business model that you're following to be profitable. You are making money because you're following your business plan. A startup is trying to find such plan. You don't have a business model. You don't have a business plan. You're trying to hone your business model canvas so that you can establish a business plan to have your successful model, have your profitability be sustainable. Where one has it and it executes it, the other's searching for it.
Yeah, the other one is essentially discovering a business plan. And not only, it takes it to the point where it's not just discovering the business model, it's discovering the business model, the customer segment, the products and services. Everything is subject to experimentation. Everything is subject to the hypothesis and test and iterative model. Like all parts of your company. Yeah. And those are some of the assumptions that the lean startup makes. So I kind of want to move on and talk about what are some of the pros and cons. So just to start off, what do you think some of the pros of using the lean startup to start your business is?
As far as pros go, I think it is, like I said earlier, it's a very quick iterative loop to validate all your assumptions, whether that is your potential customers, whether that's your product, your services, anything relating to your business idea. It is built to validate it or invalidate it as quickly as possible. And I think that is beneficial because it saves a lot of time. You fail fast. You succeed fairly fast too. You can know whether or not it's valid a lot quicker than the traditional route.
Yeah, so that's I would say that's one of them. It's the speed of discovery. You're discovering your assumptions wrong, so you make new assumptions, right? The other thing is you're making less assumptions going in. In a traditional perspective or in a traditional business plan or path, you're making a lot of assumptions. You're making a lot of business. You have to fill out this document with a lot of unknowns that you're researching before you can take it up to the next step.
Go verify.
Yeah. So you're putting in a lot of assumptions and speculation about how this would work without testing it out in the real world.
Which I think, if I can insert another point, which is somewhat related, is a huge deterrent for entrepreneurs, for founders. A lot of founders get deterred because, well, I don't want to have to go through all this setup. I want to get to the fun part, building the product. If that product's not going to work, I don't want to go through all of this. Like, I don't want to fill out a giant business plan outlining my marketing strategy and my revenue streams and every little detail, just so that I can try and go get an investor and get funding to build this product to find out it doesn't work. I think a lot of people are deterred just because they don't want to do that front work, which this kind of mitigates.
Yeah, it mitigates it, and it also gets you the customer feedback right there. Instead of having to go through that whole thing, you get customer feedback right there. I make an assumption, immediately go and test it out, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. You're getting the customer feedback right now, and you're making the changes that are needed to make this succeed. Right?
Absolutely.
So it removes that deterrent. It also allows you to come up with a more superior business model.
Overall.
Right then and there. Yeah.
Yep. Not right then and there, over time.
Yeah, over time.
Iterating.
Yeah, iteratively.
But you get to start right then and there. You don't have to start after all this. You start immediately. You start right then and there.
You start testing
and you
it out
iterate
immediately.
to try and build this. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is you fail really fast. If this assumption is wrong, you fail. If this business model is wrong, you fail. And you can move on, either pivoting, changing, whatever you want to do. You have your answer.
Yeah.
Move on. Right. So that's another deterrent, is a risk that building out a fully fledged business.
Yeah. A lot of people can't, either financially or time, they can't take that risk. They can't assume all of that risk that goes along with starting a startup, and therefore don't even try.
Yeah. And I think, in my opinion, the last advantage of using the lean startup is you don't have to go in with a concrete business plan. You don't have to go in and make the most perfect business plan in the world and look at all the assumptions and do so much research and be like, wait, I found this, right? You can just go in with nothing and figure it out as you go, which to me is very amazing. I would take that over researching a business plan for days anytime. So what would you say some of the cons are?
I think some of the cons would be how quick it is. I think with how fast-paced the lean startup methodology is, maybe you can skip over some things. Maybe you're missing things on your going through that process that maybe would have been beneficial if you were slowing down a bit and had more thought, instead of just, okay, that didn't work, iterate, because I need to meet my client's needs and I need to validate my assumptions, and that one was invalid, I'm done. That it doesn't necessarily mean that it was completely wrong, but this whole methodology is built on moving forward, so you just keep iterating, and I think you can miss some things.
Yeah. I mean, cycling through ideas too fast. Some ideas will take a long time to kind of move their path forward. So it is sometimes, when you're going super fast and you're like kind of, okay, customers didn't like this. All right, let's move on to the next thing. You miss out on those really good ideas that just needed some more time to simmer.
Or maybe a slight shift in customer. Like maybe I took the client feedback and I shifted my product instead of my customer base. Maybe that's missed out. Maybe I had nailed it.
And then,
but I just had the wrong clients. But in order to satisfy them, I pivoted a bit. That is a missed opportunity just because of the nature. There's nothing you can really do to prevent it other than take your time more. But then again,
you're going
that's
against
not the
the lean startup.
You're trying to iterate to satisfy them as quick as possible. And that means you're going to miss some things. Maybe you did pivot and you nailed it on the head, but this client was going to be more profitable in the end if you did follow that through. There's no real way to know. Unless you take both paths, and that's not.
It's the classic problem of depth first search.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this reminds me of like a greedy algorithm.
Exactly, a greedy algorithm will take the most optimized path based on the information it has
currently. So basically,
yes.
I assess this, and this is the best for me right now. I'm doing it. Not, oh, well, if you go down the tree 4 years, this one's most profitable. Okay, let's come back here. I'm going to go this way. Like, you can't do that.
All our non-math, non-CS majors.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for this moment.
I Google it. It's a good learning experience. It doesn't mean you can't apply it. Depth first search, breadth first search, greedy algorithms.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's
if you
fun.
read up
It's a
on
fun
it,
topic. Yeah, it's a fun topic.
It'll help you with other things. I don't know.
Yeah, so another con I would say is that it gives the impression to your customer that you are not prepared, or you're kind of figuring it out as you go along. And that could be a negative thing for your business, depending on your business. I personally think it's neither a positive or a negative thing. It's just a neutral thing. Figuring out your business is just part of doing business.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think that can depend, because what if certain industries, you need that credibility, you need that experience, that stamp of authenticity, where you could be trusted. I'm reliable, and you have that name or whatever to back you up. Sometimes you need to have that, where getting an investor, getting funding or whatnot, and having an established company can be beneficial. But if you don't need that credibility, if what you're building doesn't really rely on them knowing that you're completely credible, and it's more reliant on, hey, I have my proven value, that you just use my product and I can iterate fast on that, then maybe this is
so like if for example in the financial or medical industry, you do need that credibility, right? You can't just go in and ask people, hey, I'll be a bank, I'm creating a new bank, just give me your money.
Just give me your money.
All right. So yes, this is a definite con with the lean startup, where people might get the impression that you're just kind of piecing it together. and that might not really help your credibility. And I think the last point, and I don't know if this is quite a problem or not, but the last con that I would attribute to this methodology is that there is an eventual transition to becoming more of a formal business. So you eventually have to figure out your accounting practices and your structural organization, or hiring a legal team, which might be a big curve because you didn't do it in the beginning, right? Because you didn't have a business plan that outlined that in the beginning and how it fits into the company. It might be a little hard to incorporate today.
Some would establish that as a pro, because yes, it's a bigger curve, but I already established that I'm profitable and this works. It's not, I did all that and then it didn't work. It's going to be maybe a bit harder, but I already have my proven concept to back that up, that it is worth it. Knowing it's worth it ahead of time makes it a lot easier to go through.
So yeah, I completely agree with him. Yeah, the fact that you're profitable is better. I think the biggest point you can make is probably most startups have that problem with HR departments. There's no HR department for a really long time, and the culture develops without the HR department, and then once they start kind of trying to add that HR department in, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of headbutting with the culture. You have to use the fuck word
less, and it's terrible.
Yeah. So there is this, I call it business debt that you eventually have to pay down the line. But if you're profitable, I think it's worth it. Yeah.
You can pay something when you have money.
So just to kind of wrap things up, how do you think our philosophy fits into the lean startup methodology? And I know we talked a little bit about how we used it.
Think it fits, or how do we use it?
Our philosophy specifically, how does our business philosophy fit in or interact with the lean startup methodology? Do we use a lot of parts of it?
I think we do use a lot of, I guess, yeah. So we have a lot of experiences, and I think for the most part, we do use a lot of this methodology. I think we use a lot of lean startup concepts.
Yeah.
And I think it's benefited us because we are the kind of people that like to move fast, fail fast. I want to start something, and if it's going to fail, if I can know that in a couple weeks,
it's better.
It's much better, because then we can move on. Mm. If we're trying to establish whether or not this YouTube channel or podcast is going to work, we can just get right down into the product and try to make it. Just spin it up. Let's see if people actually get any benefit out of this. We don't have to write out an entire business plan for it. We can just go try it. And I think that kind of fits into our personalities. I think our personalities are a good fit. We like moving quickly. We like that productivity that comes along with just get it to your users, your viewers, your clients, and get that feedback. Because the longer you wait, I think we like getting that feedback, whether it's negative or positive, something we can iterate on. I think that's something we do.
And I feel like we really hate filling out the business stuff.
I guess
unless it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary.
I think we did it once. Like, it was one of the first ones. We actually were like, well, we need a business plan. Let's sketch out. And it's like this, how many pages was that? We just
12.
Page after page after page. It was 12, which is like half of what it should be. And it was still too long. It just took forever. And I don't even know how far that business, we just, then and there was like, this is too much. I'm done. Like, this took it out of me. I'm not able to even build anything because I got detoured at the starting line. I false started. I am out of the race before I started.
Yeah, I think we're very big proponents of doing things that are only essential to your business. So doing things that are completely, that will get you customers, that will make you money. Your business, at the end of the day, right? Your main purpose is to make money. Right. So if you're doing something if you're doing, for example, a website, or if you're building something out that isn't necessarily central to how you make money, we think you should push that off until it becomes essential to making that money. So the lean startup kind of reinforces that by focusing on what the customer wants, right? Because what the customer wants equals the product or services that you're going to make equals money.
Yep.
Right?
Focus on getting the product out now, optimize later.
Exactly.
When we want to start a YouTube channel, do we buy a $7,000 camera, or do we just bring the laptops we already have, use a phone to record, and mics that we had bought previously because we wanted to start a podcast and wanted good audio quality?
He's actually talking about what we did, but
like that's exactly what we did. Like, there's no need. We need to go buy an office space or go rent out a place to make it really. No, let's just shoot it in my apartment We can clean it up a bit, make it look decent. We'll use a car phone mount and stick the phone underneath our cabinets so that we can have a good perspective. And I think it works fairly well. Like there's no need,
I guess,
to go buy all these like, oh well, I need a camera. Oh, I need a stand for the camera. And then I'd argue that this is a better perspective than a camera in which this is above my sink. You'd have to put a stand into my sink and like mount the camera to get this angle, and I can't move this island, so it's not like I can adjust that. Just use what you have and just engineer it to get what you want and use what you have. And then once you've established that, like maybe you're down the line, if we're doing well, maybe we do want to invest in the camera, because now it's about, okay, well, if our audio quality or video quality can be better, that might be better for our users, but we don't have any users yet, so let's just
viewers.
Viewers are users. Let's use what we have to get and focus on the content. Like this is something we're still trying to hone. We're trying to get a good process for creating these episodes. That's something we should work on first before a nice camera. I think we're very prone to just use what you have to build it out before you start trying to optimize certain things.
Yeah, we're very smart.
That's another discussion. That's a whole nother thing.
Thank you so much for watching. This was our overview of the Lean Startup. If you think we missed anything, comment below, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content. We're going to do some episodes about the different components of the Lean Startup. We still haven't figured that out yet, so stay tuned.
As well as maybe the opposing view, like reasons not to follow the Lean Startup.
Yeah, there's some other really good methodologies that you can kind of use to frame how to start the startup too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you do have any questions, tell us what you think, and if you have any questions that maybe we didn't answer here, absolutely ask in the comments. We'll get back.
If you have any episode ideas, put those in the comments too. And thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.
You too. You too.
You too. You too.